In this presentation, Mr. Anjan Pathak, co-founder and CTO Vantage Circle, will present on the topic Tools and Technologies in Employee Engagement. Over to you, Mr. Pathak.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this presentation. Today, I'll be talking about the tools and techniques in employee engagement. And what I'm going to talk about is that these tools which are going to be used, which are currently used in employee engagement, and how does the future landscape looks like. So to start with, what is employee engagement? Simply put, it is the intrinsic feeling of responsibility towards the organization you work for. So it's like the parent's responsibility towards the child or the parent, etc. It varies from person to person, and everything is not well defined. But once you feel responsible, you figure out a way how to be engaged with, or how to bring employee engagement in the organization. So while this feeling depends on employees' personality and the sense of purpose, even the race, caste, etc., companies can create an environment where employees feel like taking up responsibilities. And the second point is that, which is very important in today's world, is that employee engagement needs to be adaptable. What this means is that it's impossible to plan how to do employee engagement in the current time, because things are changing so fast. Which means in an engaged workforce, right? The workforce itself is adaptable. And they can keep on changing, and the things keep on changing when it comes to employee engagement as well. So it has to be very much adaptable. What is not employee engagement? Employee engagement is not an employee entertainment. So this is a very important factor. So a lot of people think that just throwing parties will improve employee engagement, but that's not true. Sincere employees doesn't mean that they are always engaged employees. So this is another very important point. Engaged employees doesn't mean that they will stay with your organization throughout their lives. So that's not true. I mean, someone can be engaged, but they can still lead the organization. So this is another very important point. And the fourth point is that employee engagement is not solely HR's responsibility. So it is throughout the organization. So right from the leaders to the managers and the employees, it's everyone responsible. Everyone is responsible for employee engagement. Now, what do the stats say? Actually, the stats are not very important because as an organization, it could be at 30% or at 70%, in terms of employee engagement. Overall, in India, the employee engagement is better, but it varies from company to company, geographics and industry, etc. So it's really not important because at the end of the day, right, it is a journey basically. And in the journey, wherever you can, there is always a potential to improve in terms of employee engagement. This is what the presentation is about, that there are tools to help you. There are tools to measure employee engagement, and those tools will also let you know that if you are improving in terms of your employee engagement efforts. So how do we see the future? I mean, there are different kinds of ways of looking at employee engagement, but what we see is as a company who has been working in this area and industry for a very long time, we have worked with different geographics and we have also worked with different kinds of industries and a number of years. And our prediction is that in future, employee engagement is going to be the core. What does it mean? Basically, right now, the HRS system or HRMS system, which is the core thought when it comes to HR management, HR software. But what we feel is that in future, the employee engagement tools around employee engagement, they will be the core. It's like almost like a mobile phone. In the past, it is used with a phone call, but now it's a camera, isn't it? So everything is built around the camera now in a mobile phone. So we feel that in future, when it comes to human resource, I think employee engagement will be the core thought. So the tools are very easy, but the problem is with adoption. So right now, I think what we see is that there are tools, but the adoption is still very low. So that's where I think the consultancy part will happen. So what companies will start doing in future is that along with the tools, they will provide a lot of customization, because every organization is different. And also there will be some kind of services which will allow you to engage your employees. So it's kind of consultancies that will be also there along with the tools. So I think that will be the key differentiator that will happen in future. That will make employee engagement even better. What is the engagement landscape in terms of tools? So there are 3 tools that we can think of. One is, of course, the first one is, of course, the engagement measurement tools, which is also called pulse surveys sometimes. So that is the #1 tool that can measure the engagement with the employees. And then the second tool is rewards and recognition, which is, employee rewards ultimately. And the third tool that we can think of is the wellness, employee wellness. Before we start talking about these tools, it is very important to remember that the levers of engagements remain the same. What do I mean by that is that in an organization, there are 3 different kinds of people in a way. #1, it's the employees themselves, and then the managers, and then the leaders. So all of them has to be focused on employee engagement. So leadership, they need to know about empathy, vision, and purpose. And the managers needs to guide people, have feedback, conversations, and they need to drive the culture of rewards and recognition. So what we are exploring here is how tools can help in terms of moving these levers for better employee engagement. We use a lot of tools, but ultimately, I think what is happening is that there are basically the buyer needs to understand the user. So let me discuss these top 3 because these are important prime drivers when it comes to these 3 important tools I will discuss, and which can improve actually the levers in terms of the employee engagement. The employee pulse tool, what used to happen in the past? So I will be differentiating between past and the present and the future. How things are going to be in the future. So in the past, it used to be like once a year periodic survey in the employee pulse area. So there used to be like this big survey that used to happen once every year. And there are questions that was thrown, like 100 questions or whatever. And the problem with that kind of survey is that it's very much recency bias, and it's too late to react, because if something has happened at the start of the year, and if you're taking a survey at the end, then it's not going to work. Ultimately, you're not getting the real pulse of the organization. What you can see in present is that it's a continuous listening tool. So there are a lot of tools that has come up, digital tools, of course, where it can continuously listen what is happening inside the organization. So it's very simple in a way that every employee in the organization are sent a set of questionnaires once every, say, month or so, and they're repeated, of course, throughout the year. And not everyone gets the same set of questions, which means you can see employee pulse or employee engagement, how it is moving right from day one, because you can have a set of people answering all the questions, unlike the once in a year survey, where every employee has to answer at the same day. Here in the digital tools, only a certain section of the employees can say, answer the first set of questions, and this can move, keep moving. So in this case, people are not, their work is not affected because they're not having to submit these answers in one day. They're just continuously monitoring. What you can see in near future is that there will be a correlation with non-intrusive data. So for example, data from HRMS system, performance management, all those things as well, that will come, and that will correlate to employee engagement tools as well in future, in employee pulse survey tool. And we also see that in future, instead of lag, there will be lead. So there will be things like machine learning and all those things which will actually tell you what is going to happen rather than what is happening right now. So one thing that it's important to note is that it cannot be like that. These tools cannot become the source of disengagement. So it's very important to see. For example, in the past, people have tried things like Moodometer, so which used to give regular and even daily, feedback, or it used to take daily feedback, but it backfired because that itself becomes a disengagement, source of disengagement. So that kind of thing should not happen. And I think in near future, it will also allow people to allow HR managers to give concrete insights into how to improve the employee engagement. This pulse tool will also allow you to do that. The next tool is employee recognition tool. or rewards tool. In the past, employee rewards used to happen in town halls. So R&R is ultimately, it's not just a program, it's a key ingredient of a company's culture. And an R&R tool is a merely enabler to ensure efficiency, sustainability, and measurability of the R&R programs. The ownership and accountability and the policies to drive this R&R must come from the company. So the tools are just tools, but ultimately it's the company's responsibility to have the right ownership and accountability and the policies. So in the past, these tools, these rewards and recognition that used to happen in town halls, they were usually associated with some kind of awards. The picture shows in the right hand side. But what is happening in the right today's world is that there is this thing called digital rewards, which are basically that there is no real. I mean, it can be associated with monetary value, but there is no real physical gifts that people are giving away. It's mostly digital certificates, or if it's based on some kind of monetary value, then it could be gift cards or some kind of things that you can buy online. The employees can themselves buy. So this is what the modern way of doing recognition is now. People are not giving physical gifts because of there are a lot of logistical problems. I think the future is going to be always a points-based system or something like that. The other thing that we can note in the present is that the awards can be value-based. It's not just performance-based. So in the past, it used to be performance-based, but now it's more towards how to recognize people who are actually looking at companies' values and trying to improve those values rather than just performance. So what's going to happen in the near future is that all these tools they're standalone right now. So you have to log into a separate tool to recognize an employee. But what you can see in future is that there is going to be an integration with communications tools, because the communications tools are always used. So what I mean by communications tools are things like Microsoft Teams, EMR, Slack, Facebook at Work, etc. So these communications tools are already being used heavily by the employees. So in future, we think that employee recognitions tools will be integrated with this communications tool. So in fact, in Vantage Circle, we have got already integration with EMR, Slack, and Microsoft Teams. So I think the employees do not have to log into another tool, but they can do from their own tools that they're using to have regular communication between themselves inside the company. And I think what will also happen is that it will be used by HR, the recognition tool, to answer more fundamental questions around employee engagement. And the third tool I wanted to talk about is the employee wellness tool. And I think that in future, companies will be ranked up based on this employee wellness tool, because there are so many ways you can actually look at this wellness thing. And I think this is the future that it's going to be very, very important. So in the past, what used to happen in employee wellness is that it used to be in ad hoc programs. There was no real measurement or effectiveness, and it was focused on physical wellness. And the objective was to reduce the wellness premiums, right? There used to be some ancillary wellness programs like tobacco cessation, weight loss, and health screening, etc. And most of these programs were provided by insurance companies, which means for HR people, just for the HR community, it's just a tick mark. But now, what is going to happen is that it will be driving continuous behavior. I think these tools, right? They're going to change employees' behavior. It's more behavioral change, and there will be a lot of nudges that we provide. That will be provided by these tools, and mostly these are all mobile app based. What we can also see that in future in the employee wellness space is that there's this new so the mobile used to be the past, but now we have got also wearables, like for example, a wearable watch. So these watches are going to be there with everyone. So I think the next stage in the revolution of what people use is going to be the health watches, which are almost everyone is going to have it. So that means we can track everyone's behavior, right? How they are doing. So and I think those watches will be ultimately integrated with these employee wellness tools, and that will give a much more better insight. And we can incentivize people based on this behavior, based on the behavior, what they're doing basically, and that can be measured by these watches. And I think that's how we see that employee wellness tools will help and become very sophisticated in terms of how do you engage your employees. So as I said, this present is the app-based and online, and it's structured, continuous-based, and it's very important to understand that it's not just about physical wellness anymore. It's about mental as well as financial wellness as well. So all of these are combined, and we are calling it employee wellness tool nowadays. So near future, as I said, wellness as part of engagement, and it's not just about premium reduction. So also it's not going to be just about the post something happens. It's more about preventive measures that we can have for the employees in order to improve their health and wellness. So this is what is going to be the future. So there will be also data to correlate engagement data as well. So in near future, this is also going to be another important thing. I haven't put this in the slides yet, but there is another tool which is also very important, is the employee advocacy tool. So the employee advocacy tool is another tool which employees can use to advocate what is happening in the company. For example, if something happens, and like the way people share in their own LinkedIn or Facebook, all the social media sites. So there are tools which, if something is pushed inside your company, your employees can share those news or the things that are happening inside the company in their own social media account. And that is called employee advocacy. So there are tools around employee advocacy as well. So which is something that I haven't covered here. So what are the key takeaways? Invest in employee engagement specific technologies. So it's like not having an employee engagement tool is like almost a death knell. And the differentiator is on the usability side. It's not like you just bring a tool and everyone will start using it. No, that's not going to happen. So the most important thing is that the tools needs to be usable. Think about the Amazon, the mobile apps or the Flipkart mobile app or any of these mobile apps that we use nowadays, shopping apps basically. So it's all focused on usability. And WhatsApp, for example, it's so easy to use that you do not have to even think about it. So I think this is what is very important when you go for a tool. And it's important not to basically buy the cheapest of the tools because that's not going to be useful at the end of the day. So it's very important to see how the UX and the UI and how the user behavior of the people who are actually using it is going to find it ultimately. So at the end of the day, it needs to be consumer class. It needs to be mobile friendly. It needs to have excellent support and collaboration. It needs to be collaborative. And it needs to focus on delivering the strategic value. And it's not just automation. HR needs to be engaged while taking any decisions. Technologies, it needs to be important that, at the end of the day, the tools, the buyer behavior, which is the most important thing. So ultimately, it will fall down to the HR who is going to ultimately procure these tools. So it's very important to look for the most usable tool in the market. So that's it in my presentation, and you can download some of the handbook that we have got, lots of materials that we have got in our website. Our blog is one of the most frequently visited blog in the HR community now. So you can visit our blog. We have also a YouTube channel. And yeah, thank you very much then, and hope to see you again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Pathak, for your time and input. Stay tuned for the next session.